Before the dogfights and daring aces, there were men who flew not to kill but to see. Armed with cameras instead of guns, they became the unseen heroes of the Great War. Photograph they took could save thousands of lives or cost their own. This is the story of the rise of aerial reconnaissance, eyes over the battlefield. The rise of aerial reconnaissance, eyes over the battlefield. Long before the roar of machine guns filled the sky, airplanes served a quieter, but no less vital, role in war as the eyes of the army. The story of aerial reconnaissance is not one of glory or duels, but of patience, courage, and precision. It was the unseen battle above the trenches, where observation meant survival, and information could change the fate of nations. When World War I erupted in 1914, aviation was still in its infancy. Airplanes were fragile wooden frames covered in fabric, powered by unreliable engines that could barely lift them above the clouds. Yet, armies on both sides quickly realized their potential. At first, aircraft were used only for reconnaissance, flying low and slow to photograph enemy trenches, map terrain, and track troop movements. In the early months of the war, observation balloons were the primary means of surveillance. These tethered giants offered a stable platform for spotting artillery targets. However, they were also easy targets, vulnerable to wind, fire, and enemy attack. Airplanes offered a more mobile solution. They could fly beyond the front lines, capture photographs, and return with vital intelligence if they survived. The earliest reconnaissance flights were dangerous in ways few could imagine. Pilots often flew without parachutes, with open cockpits that exposed them to freezing winds and enemy fire. Cameras were heavy, cumbersome machines mounted on the fuselage or held by hand. Navigating over unfamiliar territory was perilous, and if an engine failed, a crash behind enemy lines meant certain capture or death. Yet, despite these risks, the value of aerial observation became undeniable. During the First Battle of the Marne in September 1914, French pilots discovered a critical gap in the advancing German line. That intelligence allowed Allied forces to counterattack, halting the German advance and saving Paris. It was one of the first moments in history where information gathered from the air directly changed the course of a major battle. As the war dragged on, both sides raced to improve their aerial reconnaissance capability. The British developed the Royal Flying Corps RFC, which worked closely with artillery units. Pilots would fly over enemy lines, signal coordinates back to gunners, and adjust artillery fire in real time, an early form of air-to-ground coordination. By 1916, technology had advanced rapidly. Cameras became more sophisticated, producing detailed aerial photographs that could reveal trenches, gun placements, and even camouflage patterns. Analysts on the ground developed new techniques for interpreting these photos, transforming them into detailed maps for commanders. The air had become the new frontier of intelligence, but with reconnaissance came risk and conflict. It didn't take long for opposing pilots to encounter each other in the sky. At first, they simply waved or exchanged gestures. Then, as the stakes rose, they began to arm themselves with pistols, rifles, and eventually mounted machine guns. Thus, the dogfight was born, a deadly evolution that turned scouts into combat pilots. Even so, reconnaissance remained the backbone of air warfare. Behind every ace in every battle, there were crews gathering data that made victory possible. During the Battle of the Somme in 1916, for example, British reconnaissance flights captured over 19,000 aerial photographs and produced over 400,000 prints for planning and artillery targeting. Without them, the offensive would have been blind. On the German side, reconnaissance was equally vital. The Fliegertruppen der Deutschen, later known as the Luft, developed highly specialized observation squadrons, equipped with the Albatros C-Series sturdy two-seater planes with cameras and wireless transmitters. These crews worked in pairs, the pilot to navigate and the observer to photograph and report. Many future German aces, including Manfred von Richt, began their careers as observers before becoming fighter pilots. By 1917, aerial reconnaissance had become a sophisticated system involving photography, radio communication, and rapid intelligence analysis. Planes flew at dawn and dusk, When lighting conditions were best for capturing clear images, specialized photographic units developed film on-site, and intelligence officers interpreted data within hours. This process gave commanders near real-time awareness of enemy positions and unprecedented advantage in military history. The courage of reconnaissance crews was often overlooked. They had no machine guns or armor to protect them from enemy fighters. Their mission was not to kill, but to endure, to bring back the truth from behind enemy lines. Their bravery was measured not in victories, but in survival. By the end of the war in 1918, aerial reconnaissance had transformed warfare forever. Armies no longer relied solely on scouts or spies. They could see the entire battlefield from above. The fog of war had begun to lift, replaced by a new kind of vision, one born in the open skies. The lessons of World War I carried into the future. Aerial reconnaissance became the foundation for modern air strategy from World War I's massive photo surveys to the Cold War spy planes. And even today's satellites and drones, it all began with those fragile their cameras strapped to wooden frames, and the men who risked everything to look down upon the earth below. They were not hunters or heroes in the traditional sense, but without them, no battle could be won, no plan could succeed, and no ace could rise. They were the silent watchers of the Great War, the eyes over the battlefield. They watched the war from above, turning vision into victory. Their courage proved that not all heroes carried guns. Some carried cameras, but among those skies were others whose names history forgot. Join us in the next episode, The Forgotten Aces, Heroes Beyond the Red. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.